have you on the call today. And
Mhm.
so, Siddharth, the first question that came to mind when I went through the Omnivio pitch deck was, I thought all e-commerce tech and omnicommerce tech had matured by now, right? I mean, these were buzzwords and these were up and coming technologies 5 years back. What led you to think about a technology still addressing this space in 2023?
Hmm. Hey, Shobit. Uh, Good to reconnect, and
Yeah.
thanks for having me here. So, yeah, look, it's a good question, and honestly, the way we think about it is that the wave one of e-commerce, which is people going online and people selling stuff through websites, and that entire stack in terms of having warehouses and deliveries and returns and everything. I think that's pretty much done and dusted. I kind of agree with you. And we
Right.
saw the maturity and the strength of that stack also during the COVID era, that
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah.
yeah, people could just shop anything from home, right? And
Right.
you and I, we or all the people on the call, we never went out for months together.
Right.
Now, what's interesting and what also kind of helped us or actually forced us to think about some novel problems is that after like spending 8 9 years in e-commerce, we were working in for some retailers. I was working for Landmark Group back in Dubai, and interestingly, I was sitting in India. I was able to manage their e-commerce business. Two, three things happened simultaneously. First thing, as the entire world went remote, Landmark was at a very interesting point. It was a very, very mature retailer, having around 2,000 stores across the entire Middle East. And also, that was like 90 95% of their business. And the business that we were building, the pure online, that was
Right.
still 5%. Two, three things happened quickly. All the stores went off. So the entire business revenue actually went to zero. And online became the only channel. So we used to joke that omni channel is the only channel.
Yeah.
And that became like the lifeline for the group.
Got
What
it.
so then what happened that uh, we had to actually uh, the amount of traffic that we're getting on the site and the amount of work that we're getting on the online, that was like 10 times 20 times, and we were not really prepared to manage that volume from the warehousing and the delivery network. So we had to actually start using our stores more, not only for customer walk-ins, but for fulfillment and deliveries. So that entire network moved from one warehouse, multiple customers, to multiple small warehouses and multiple customers. So it became very complex.
All right.
And that told us that, this is where the future is going to be. What we thought that e-commerce has matured, actually, this is the version 2.0 of e-commerce, which we'll call omni-commerce, that people can actually shop from any point, be it a warehouse, be it a store, and we should be able to give them the great experience and great deliveries from any point. So that was like a major, paradigm shift that we could see happening in front of our eyes. So
All
that
right.
was one major change, and that told us that, okay, man, this is not done yet. This is actually going really serious, where 5% of the business is now becoming 90%, and this is how the future is going to look like. So when you look at from that perspective, a lot more can be done. So yeah, you're right, e-commerce 1.0 is done, but I think a lot more interesting things are in store, and that's what is what we are kind of excited to build for.
Understood. Understood. All right. Fantastic. All right.
Absolutely.
So I think, yeah, it
Yeah,
would be lovely to hear what you're building for the entire.
absolutely. So I'll probably just jump from where I left just now, that when you're running such a large network where you have stores, where you have warehouses, you have deliveries, and the person at the heart and center of it is a consumer who can actually shop from any point. What you need is that you need the consumer to be able to see what is happening to its orders across the journey. So, the problem that always keeps us awake is that, whenever as a consumer, I want to buy something online, I go to Amazon or Flipkart or Myntra or any marketplace of my choice. When I want to buy something offline or any favorite brand, like I'm wearing an Arrow shirt, I go to an Arrow store or to Shopper Stop. I never go to arrow.com, I never go to shopperstop.com, or I never used to go to landmark.com to buy something. So there's a fundamental gap in the kind of experience that a pure online player gives and a pure offline player gives through their own checkout. And to solve this fundamental problem, we actually have to look under the hood. All the systems that all these retailers are using, in terms of warehousing systems, website systems, delivery systems, they don't talk very well to each other. So we have to solve this problem very differently. And the construct that we are building is what we call a control tower. So basically, to for all the people on the call, I think just removing the e-commerce paradigm and just thinking about airports and flights. I think everybody on the call has taken flights, has been onto the airports, and probably would have seen the movie Runway 34, a recent flick. So there is that tower near the airport, which is we call a air traffic control tower, that actually pulls information from all the different sources, how the flights are coming and going, what's happening to the security systems, what's happening to the on ground systems, and tells consumers, flight companies, airline companies what needs to be done. So Omniview is building that control tower for the larger retailers, brands, and enterprises, that they can actually see what is happening to the orders of the consumers from the time the order is placed to the time the order is shipped out from the warehouse to the time the order is getting delivered and returned. So it's a software product that we are building, and it's called as omni-channel control tower that helps all these companies track their orders and supply chains across the end-to-end order to delivery life cycle. So I hope that kind of explains what we are doing in a simple way. Whenever in doubt, just think of a control tower near an airport. I think that will kind of put this in perspective.
Got it. Got it. Got it. I think Siddharth, thanks for sharing that. I think we'll have more and more clarity as we go along with this conversation. If I was to explain it probably as a supply chain professional, or even try to explain it in layman's term, any D2C or e-commerce, D2C e-commerce company which has multimodal channels of fulfillment would have warehouses at one end, would have customers' orders on the other end, and
Yeah,
then they would have logistics in between, right?
yeah, yeah,
And of course, at the warehouse also, you have suppliers' orders which are coming into the warehouse, right?
yeah,
Now, imagine you have five warehouses across the country. You are working with 10 logistics providers, depending on their rates, depending on their performance, depending on their pin code reach.
yeah.
And then you have consumers, of course, who are, could be spread about across 28,000 pin codes in the country. At any
Mhm.
given point of time, it becomes very difficult to fetch information from each of those 10 logistics providers, from five of those warehouses, which could also be outsourced or leased to different service providers who's somebody is working on SAP, somebody is working on Unicommerce, somebody is working on some other systems, and
Yeah,
to come across with one integrated view for a supply chain professional, right? So if I'm the supply chain head of that organization, I want one integrated view in terms of what is the performance going on for my customers, which warehouse is struggling, which
hmm,
logistics service
hmm.
provider is struggling, what is my ship to deliver lead time, which are the exact things that I need to work on. That information is pretty fragmented across 10 into 5 nodes, right? I mean, let's say that information
Precisely.
is spread across 50
Yeah,
different people
touch
across.
points. Yes,
So
exactly.
Siddharth's Omnivio is bringing that information in a structured, meaningful, decipherable, and actionable format by, you know, picking up the logical and similar information points from each of those 50 reports, right? So that I, as Shobhajan, who's the supply chain head for that organization, can take a very accurate, time bound decision looking at, where is the system going wrong. And of course, then on top of that, ease of that information fetching, whether it's available on my Slack, whether it's available on my WhatsApp, whether it's available to me in my email and all, are anyways cherry on the top. I think that in a nutshell is what Siddharth has built, which is a control tower on top of the supply chain being run for an organization.
That's precisely Shobit. You kind of hit it on its head. And I
Yeah.
think that's super helpful to people who also understand supply chain in a bit detail, that there are so many different participants in a supply chain, and the journey actually starts slightly before, like it also goes as up to the time the customer places the order, and what you see in terms of the delivery timeline on the website or on Shopify, and then the orders goes to different warehouses. There are certain logic that people run, that if the customer is in Bangalore, we should try to deliver an order from Bangalore so that it reaches faster. And then of course it makes its way to the different delivery partners, as Shobit talked about. So the problem that Shobit, as you said, like as a supply chain leader, you want to see what is happening to all those orders across those 5, 10, 15 warehouses, 10, 15 courier partners, and across the thousands or lakhs or millions of consumers. And are all those orders meeting the promise? Because Amazon has given everybody a habit that if you are getting this information that your order is going to get delivered on 10th of June, it should get delivered on 10th of June, not before and also not after. That's the level of precision Amazon has kind of enforced, or customers have become habitual. And second thing, all the faster and faster delivery modes, people are like so impatient that we are talking about 10-minute, 20, 30-minute delivery. So meeting that promise across those many touch points, those many orders, that becomes a very hairy problem, of course, for supply chain heads like you all internally, as well as eventually for the consumers of those particular brands. Then that's a problem that we try to solve by building this supply chain data aggregation software, which we call control tower in the industry parlance. Yeah. So I hope that kind of clarifies a bit further.
Great. So, Siddharth, picking up from here, I think even when I got to know about Omnivio, my first question or the first thought in mind after realizing what you're building
Yeah.
was, can Tableau, one or many of the existing MIS and dashboarding systems like
Yeah.
Tableau, not solve for this? Can I not have two SQL coders sitting in my team who will be able to fetch this data from multiple sources and present it to me in a meaningful manner? So, how do you win this over a Tableau or a MySQL? Is it a replacement? Is it an add-on on top? Where does Omnivio play?
All right. So that's a very good question. And Tableau, Metabase, Click, or any other, I would say, data analysis and visualization tool.
Yeah,
So those are the consumers of the problem that we are solving. I think you used the word two SQL coders or two,
yeah,
Microsoft Excel, experts.
yeah,
Let
yeah,
us just use
yeah.
a simpler tool.
Correct.
The way the problem is getting solved is either you have these two SQL coders or you have a 20-member MIS team. I think MIS, the Management Information System, that
Yes.
terminology everybody understands in business. How that team currently works is they go to all these five warehousing systems. They go to the website systems like Shopify. They go to Unicommerce or Incref or any WMS that you know of, and then it goes to courier systems. They mostly manually download the data in form of Excel downloads or CSVs, put it all together, putting those VLOOKUPs and joins, and creates a master data table or master Excel sheet, and then I would say run the analysis. SQL coders are still a one level up, which automate a part of this workflow. Omnivio basically removes any human intervention in this particular process. So that is the first problem that we are solving, that the data from any of the systems, be it Shopify, warehousing systems, delivery systems, or return systems, or even payment and consumer systems like Freshdesk, all of that data is getting pulled in real time through APIs. We are an API first product, and then it is getting loaded onto any tool. So Tableau is just like one of the, I would say, consumers of the data that we are throwing out. It can be Microsoft Excel, it can be Power BI, it can be any other tool that you know of. So Tableau is like complementary to us. We are giving the right information to Tableau. Like, it's not garbage in, garbage out, because Tableau can just have a garbage in input and that can throw out some garbage. So we clean that data, get this data in real time from all systems, and in a way automate that entire MIS workflow for all these enterprises.
Got it. Got it. But then said, is it not that then you essentially playing on a cost arbitrage of manpower? I mean, you said the largest could be a 20-member MIS team, and the smallest can be two brilliant MySQL coders who could do this job. But then, are you just not replacing manpower anywhere between a 2 to 20 member team for a young B2C startup to, let's say, a Misho, which is like an 8 lakh orders a day kind of a startup? Are you then only playing on cost arbitrage?
It's a good point. I think that can be the first response to when we talk about the way we are solving the problem. But honestly, Sobit, the the real problem that an MIS team really solves for is not for the data aggregation and availability, but eventually the outcomes that you and the decisions that you take from that data. So that is the second and the bigger part, that okay, once as a supply chain head, you know that out of a million orders a month, 20% orders are going to get delayed or are going to get returned. That's a big impact on your P&L. You will spend both forward and return logistics cost. You will have your net. merchandise value or net sales going down by 20%, etc., etc. So then you can take decisions that, how do I make sure that my delivery percentages increase, my returns go down, I'm not really paying, freight on some of the, I would say, poor performing courier partners, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So that's where the real value creation happens. That 20 MIS folks can actually enable, I would say, a company doing maybe 1 lakh orders a day or something.
Mm.
So in a way, and for and in a way, every order is like 100 rupees of spend. So the real value capture happens in terms of, are you enabling commerce faster? Are you making sure the supply chains are running on time as per SLA, or and as well as in the right cost as well as at the right scale. So the cost arbitrage is like a way to get inside the enterprise, but after that it is more about, how do you create ongoing value for that particular enterprise in terms of reducing supply chain cost, delivering on time, etc., etc.
All right. So,
It's a
Siddharth,
far bigger, yeah, it's a far bigger value
got it, got
creation.
it,
Yeah.
got it.
Yes.
So, Siddharth, you're saying we're just not processing information, we're also recommending actionable insights
Yeah.
or actions to be taken by the supply chain folks as a part of this?
Yes, precisely. So now, just going back to the entire Tableau, analogy.
Hmm.
So Tableau is something like a middle layer in between. The
Mhm.
first problem that we are solving is just getting data to the right place, which is can be Tableau or anything. But second, which is the real value creating thing, is that we actually give out right actionable insights, alerts, and nudges to the different stakeholders in supply chain. It can be a head of supply chain like you, who just wants to look at what's happening at a pan India level and take certain long term decisions like
Oh,
change my network design or change my delivery partners. And it can also be your one warehouse operator who just wants to make sure that his warehouse is working properly. He does not want a pan India view, he only wants a view of, is he picking the orders on time? Is he shipping the orders on time? Is the inventory spick and span? So those insights across the hierarchy is what is we also deliver, which we also our software also enables. And very interestingly, we are making it very mobile first. So those insights actually go to your communication platforms of choice. So if you see in today's world, I think in India specifically, the entire supply chains are being, I think any business is being run on WhatsApp. Everybody is either keeping the WhatsApp web open, or people are just keeping checking their, WhatsApp groups. We make sure that relevant information goes to the relevant WhatsApp channels and WhatsApp groups. Of course, email is the table stakes, so we of course enable that information going to email. And in more developed parts of the globe, we can also enable information going through Slack or Skype or any communication platform of your choice. So
right.
two parts, the data aggregation layer and the monitoring and the insights layer, which is kind of triggering all these information to the right stakeholders.
Got it. Got it. So that it makes sense, right? I mean, it's as a supply chain professional, I can be very, very
Yeah,
honest with what you're building is absolutely critical for anybody who's running supply chain, right?
right.
Then,
And sorry to interrupt, just Shobit, one point I just want to make that, again, similarly, like all the consumers here, like people who take flights, I keep on going to the air traffic control tower because the construct comes from there. Eventually, as consumers, we get that message from Indigo that your flight is on time, or your flight is delayed by 2 hours, or reach airport by 4 hours early because there is congestion. So in a way, information is getting pulled from systems, but eventually it is getting to the right consumers either on the dashboard on the airport, where this is your check-in counter and this is your boarding gate, as well as on your cell phone, which tells you, okay, please be on time, or please be early, please be late, etc. So that's exactly the construct that we are delivering to the people here, but in a
got
supply chain and retail perspective.
got it. So then, help me understand. I mean, in your deck, you had Misho as one of your clients, right? And to the best of my information, Misho currently ships out about 8 to 10 lakh orders a day. Normal, right? I mean, peak days could, of course, be almost double, triple of that. Are you telling me Misho could ramp up to 8 to 10 lakh orders a day without having this visibility? And were they waiting for Omnivio to bring this visibility to them? I mean, for the life of me, I can't understand whoever is running Misho's supply chain to not have this information till like 8 lakh orders a day and then, having an Omnivio solve for them in 23.
No,
I
that
mean,
will
you're
be too presumptive
unbelievable.
of us here. No, honestly, Shobhit, that will be too presumptive of us, and it's also some of our ex-Snapdeal folks are running it, so like very high
Right.
regard for them also. But
Yeah.
like, so just telling a longer story here, and just everybody, please bear with me. So you're right. Currently, Misho is doing more than 20 lakh orders a day.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
pretty,
all right.
pretty. Yeah, it's a pretty huge scale. And on the sale days in October, 90 November, they did like 80, 90 lakh orders a day. So it's like huge, insane
Correct.
country level scale, right? Now,
Yeah. So how did you land them as a
yeah.
client?
So apart from knowing a few interesting folks, I'll just talk
All
about
right.
the problem first. Yeah. So, what happened, when you're running such a large supply chain and such a large scale, you cannot depend on the top 4 or 5 courier companies in the country, right? They can always hold you to ransom. So
Yeah.
that is the business problem that they started solving for that. Can they build their own internal logistics? So when you're doing 20 lakh orders, their internal, plan was to build internal logistics for at least 10 to 20% of the orders. So that's when they started, breaking down their order to delivery, the entire supply chain into three parts. The first mile, which is close to the seller, who actually fulfills the order by packing it and dispatching it. Then there is a mid mile, which is basically trucks from Delhi to Bangalore or Delhi to Calcutta or Guwahati. And then, of course, the last mile, which is the real delivery to the consumer happens. They said we will divide this entire leg into three parts, and we will have separate small regional vendors who will run the supply chain and will tight this supply chain through a technology platform. So using this, they call this a logistics as a platform or open logistics platform. This particular construct is their asset light way of building an internal logistics. They're not investing
Mhm.
in assets. They are just running, they're bringing new supply of regional services providers. And using this, they are running internal logistics. Now, when this happens, the complexity increases, right? Because
Mhm.
before this, four courier partners, Delivery, Blue Dart, Express Bees, Shadowfax, and what have you, I think what have you, and then you can get full visibility from them. But when you break down a supply chain, you have different people running different parts of supply chain, different softwares being run for different part of supply chain, and the problem of different data being in different silos, the problem that Omnivio wants to solve starts arising.
All
So
right.
so that is the genesis of us getting in the game there,
All
that
right.
they knew that they are running first mile separately across 8 cities. They were delivering in Guwahati, Hyderabad, like I think 20,000 pin codes. So they said, okay, we need help on visibility on first mile. So at least can you pick up Delhi as the first, pilot spot where you can provide us visibility as to what's happening to 50,000 orders per day across maybe, 10,000 sellers. So, and that's where we started, kind of helping them. So
Got it.
they
Understood.
themselves, as they changed the network design, they created their own problems, which is, of course, it solved one problem, it gave rise to another problem, which was for hours to the taking. So yeah, I
All
think
right.
that's how it happened. So in
So
a way, in a nutshell, we are running their first mile control towers, just to
got it.
summarize.
Got it. So Siddharth, while we compare to Tableau, but then does ShipRocket not solve for a similar use case where ShipRocket is already aggregated with over 50 logistics companies and is giving an integrated view to all clients and all, and clients no longer have to integrate with each of the logistics companies independently. They can
Yeah,
just use ShipRocket as a SaaS play alone, or they could also use ShipRocket as a logistics company themselves and
absolutely.
get
Yeah.
and then of course ShipRocket can decide who do they have to hive off the load to depending on the performance and all that, right? So does ShipRocket not solve for it?
All right. Two parts answer to that question. Let us take first instance where you are a smaller brand or a smaller seller who's just running all your delivery orders through ShipRocket.
Yeah.
In that scenario, absolutely, ShipRocket has solved a splendid problem. Rather than working with multiple courier partners, just work with
Yeah.
ShipRocket, and it will give you end-to-end visibility post shipping. Like what once the order is out of your warehouse,
Yeah.
ShipRocket is going to give you visibility, but it will not give you visibility from the time the order is placed to the time the order is getting processed in your warehouse. It will not tell you what's happening to your inventory. It will not have tell you how the returns are getting processed in your warehouse. So the entire order to delivery to return, we call it order to remittance journey, that ShipRocket does not cover. And
All right.
ShipRocket, I think we can use ClickPost, Farai,
Yeah.
ShipBuddy, ShipLite. There are like so many shipping tech aggregators. They all solve the same elegant problem, but it is always post ship once the order is out of the premises.
All right.
So I think that's one part that why ShipRocket potentially can be ineffective. But second major problem, and as we just talked about Misho or any large, any large customer, maybe somebody is doing like more than 10,000 orders a day.
Right.
These folks never give all their business to one, particular courier company. If Shiprocket is their courier company, they will always want to load balance, give 30% orders to Shiprocket, 20% to delivery, maybe another 10, 20, 20% to Ecom Express, etc. And then the same problem arises that you have four different technology systems, Shiprocket plus three, and then your warehouses, your
Yeah.
website, your returns. And again, the problem becomes what Omnivio is solving.
Got
So
it.
yeah, I think we are able to actually, so they are playing in a different world. They are playing in the seller world. Individual sellers probably doing less than 10 orders, 12 orders, 20 orders a day. And we are playing in the enterprise world, which is people, folks like Mama Earth, Boat, Lifestyle India, or mid-market brands, tons of them. So those are potentially the people who need help there.
Got
Yeah,
it.
I think we have a few questions and few people are raising their
Yeah.
hand.
Question is Omnivio also solving for order assignment to warehouse network problem? And I think this is something similar to what Rohit has also asked. For instance, your solution tracks the consumption patterns of SKUs over a period of time. And if you foresee the problem of maldistribution, then the system provides actionable insights and recommendations to the supply chain head to move the material between DCs. So essentially, Siddharth, does your platform actually solve for a warehouse network problem and recommendation on which material to be placed in which DC for the most optimum results?
Okay. So yes, this is the second part. Like once you have that historical data in terms of consumption patterns by SKU, inventory across different warehouses, what is getting shipped from which warehouse to which location, yes, you can always build your models on top of that. So we do send out those insights to the customers as and when they require. It's like the fundamental problem that one can solve is if you have all the data in real time and historical data at one place, you can slice and dice it the way you want. So of course, the first level slicing and dicing is just telling people about their SLAs and KPIs. Next level is, can you help them on network design, on your sales and operations planning, inventory mirroring, and movement of inventory from one node to another node. Going a bit technical, but yeah, all those functionalities is what we are building, and it's a part of our roadmap in terms of delivering it as the more and more product versions are coming out. So that was there. I think your question was in terms of order refinement. So we look at that particular problem, which is order management, order orchestration, order refinement, as a second part of our product build. So control tower is what tells you what to do, then an orchestration layer tells you how to do it, or it enables you to run the entire supply chain from a single management console. So that is a part of a product roadmap. Right now we are not doing it. Right now we're just getting inside all these enterprises by latching our control towers, getting all their data at one place, and then actually helping them run their supply chain in, I would say, day to day well. And then second is, if they want to take certain action on supply chain from our control tower, we are going to build a next layer below that. Slightly longer answer to your question, but I hope it clarifies.
So, Siddharth, if I was to summarize, what you're saying is the data enablement for such optimization and all is what has been built now. The actual optimization layer would be a part of the product roadmap,
Roadmap. Yes, precisely.
right? Okay.
Precisely, Shobhit.
Okay. So that my next question was, all the discussion that we've had so far, does it mean your clientele would be limited to, let's say, early stage e-commerce brands, D2C brands, and similar setups? I mean, you would typically not get into FMCG, the large players like FMCGs and metal and mining companies, and all the other larger conglomerates out there. Is it limited to e-commerce and D2C then?
All right. So let me say, look, we are, the name of the company is Omnivio Retail Technology. So we are retail first. So e-commerce is like 10% of retail. The remaining 90% is still out there, and it
Right.
is getting online fast. So it's like when the client, of course, our entry point is D2C and e-commerce companies, but the real big daddies is where you want to really go and solve and help them are the larger retail brands, the folks who have been offline and now going online, like
For
Mike's and
example,
World
sorry,
and
stopping you there, Siddharth, but for example, would you see a Bata becoming a client to you?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, Bata is Bata or Echo. Like, let me ask all the people on the call, like, what is your favorite fashion brand? I think that's gonna be our customer. If it's Echo or Crocs or, and any consumer, like my wife like Gucci shoes, so but Gucci, we never buy from Gucci.com. So yeah, I think all those folks are going to be our customers, and that's a very big, like 90% ocean, which is coming online, has lot of legacy technologies. They don't really understand what happens between different channels, so that's the real end game or the problem I really want to solve for them. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So that, I think from a questions perspective, I mean, to understand, unless anybody in the on the call has some other questions regarding trying to understand what the business is all about, I wanted to move towards the monetization side, right?
Sure.
Typically, a SaaS player would monetize on per transaction, right? Because that what they're enabling is a part of the end-to-end fulfillment journey, right? So
Yeah.
for example, last mile delivery app or a unicommerce which helps you process your orders in the warehouse, or an ERP solution or a transportation management solution and all. Given that you are a data layer on top, what would your revenue model be? Will it be per transaction? Will it be lump sum? How do you see that playing out? Because
Yeah.
typically, I mean, Indian companies don't pay, right, for SaaS. So
Yeah.
how do you
Absolutely.
see that evolving?
Absolutely. We were very clear on that paradigm. So thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that up. But I will touch on that slightly later. So you're right that any SaaS player should price on transaction. So we are no different. We have a transaction link pricing model, but we also have a minimum guarantee or a minimum subscription plan that for a mid-market brand, any company like a Mokobara, which is our recent customer. So people who are below 15, 20,000 orders a month, that's what we call a mid-market brand, or they spend, I would say, less than 1 crore rupees on logistics, or like 5 crore on logistics on a yearly basis, 30, 40 lakh on a monthly basis. That's the universe that we call mid-market. For them, we have a minimum subscription price of maybe some 50,000 rupees up to some X orders, and above that, it is some X rupees per order. So it's a very minimum subscription price plus some a transaction link pricing on top of that. For enterprises who are like in the range of more than 1 lakh orders a month up to few lakh orders, like to folks like Misho, we have a slightly higher minimum subscription pack, and then above that again a transaction link pricing. So I can talk about details, but exactly the same pricing model that any SaaS company has. But
All
we are
right.
not like transaction link from day one. We know that there are certain setup costs, so we always have a minimum subscription price
Got it.
that we
Got it.
always
Got it.
push for. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And
Second thing,
yeah.
just sorry to interrupt and probably preempt. I think you mentioned about the people not paying for SaaS. You're right. We were clear that people won't pay for SaaS, at least in the, I would say, 2019 or 2024 India. Let us just put like
Exactly. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is the decade for India, and we all have this expectation. India hopefully will become a developed country. The per
Yeah.
capita will go from a $2,000 to a $10,000 probably in next 15 years. Once that happens, of course, people will start paying for SaaS because the manpower will not be that cheap. But
All right.
till that time that happens, we are very clear that just like the airport analogy, control tower is your entry point. It's like a Trojan, or like I should say you're a thyrocare, diagnostic chain that you're building. You're basically charging some X rupees, getting insights about the business, and then you start managing a part of their supply chain. Because just like any doctor or any diagnostic tool, which in a way control tower is, while you tell them, okay, this is wrong in your supply chain, or you are kind of having some trouble in your warehouse or in your deliveries or some other part, people always come back and say, can you please solve this part for me? And that's where we say, okay, fine, here we'll take a larger portion of the business. We will become like a logistics provider which does not own the asset but runs that particular supply chain for them. So that's our second revenue model. So,
Got it. Got it. Got it. So that's probably my final question on this, right? This is, of course, going to be B2B sales heavy.
yeah.
You will have to deploy a sales team and all. Now,
Mhm.
you, of course, have a phenomenal track record of having worked in e-commerce companies, and you understand the problem statement very well and all. Will it only be your credential which comes into play, or do you think the sales team that you build will be able to do a good job of explaining what is needed and what is the exact problem statement that you're trying to solve and all? Essentially, will sales become a growth bottleneck for you?
Not at all. I think all enterprise companies are sales companies at their heart. So I think Microsoft is actually a sales company. So,
Hmm.
and that's exactly what we think about ourselves. But actually, you're right. In the early stages, or in the early, I would say, first 18-24 months, it's a founder-led sales. And thanks for your kind words. We have been around. I think most of the team is ex e-commerce folks, Snapdeal, Flipkart, Swiggy, Shiprocket. So, and we know a lot of CXOs like you all on both parts of the ocean. So we have good network in India. We have a reasonable good network in Middle East. These are the two first target markets for us. And of course, we want to expand to Southeast Asia. In the first 1-2 years, like currently, it's mostly founder led. But second layer, of course, we have to build a very large enterprise sales team, which
Mhm.
understands logistics, we understand the entire GTM playbook for kind of going after enterprises and selling them and running that entire sales strategy. We are already in the works. We have a 2-member sales team, which given at our stage is kind of giving us reasonable traction. But third point, I think eventually this will have to become a product-led growth, where we'll have to start opening our plugins, we'll have to start opening our APIs, we'll have to start becoming a part of certain legacy tech marketplaces. Like it can be Shopify marketplace. We can probably
Yeah.
launch a plugin there. We can launch a plugin for a SAP marketplace and things like that. So for
Right.
tackling international markets, I think that's the third leg of the GTM that will turn on as we get more capitalized and the product is mature for more self-serve versions. So yeah, we are very clear that initially it's founder-led, then a sales enterprise sales team-led, and then eventually a proper product-led, growth motion has to be put in place.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Fantastic. I think Siddharth, thanks for answering all this. I hope it helped everybody on the call. I mean, it's definitely helped me understand the entire product better and your approach better. Wish you the very best. I think you've joined Misfits. You're being hosted on Misfits, and I hope 13th is not the unlucky number. But I wish you the best, man. I mean,
No, man, it's always a pleasure talking to you. That it didn't feel like a demo call when we first talked. It was like more, two friends
no,
reconnecting and
I was
yeah,
eager to understand, man. I've been on both
yeah,
sides of the table, so for
yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah. You are like you are the expert, man. So, and
it's very been a
it,
pleasure. It's been a